This is the new Alfa Romeo Stelvio, and it's perfect if you fancy something Italian, only a little bit taller. Okay, so I know that Costa is technically a British brand, but this Stelvio is a pure, good-looking, thoroughbred Italian. Essentially, it's a Giulia Grande. So it Costa from £34,000. Now, if you click up there, you can go to carwow.co.uk, compare offers online on the Stelvio, or any car for that matter, or from the comfort of your own home. So, being an SUV, Alfa's first ever SUV for that matter, means it's easier to get in and out of than the Giulia saloon car. And you know, it's nice and spacious in here as well. Practicality is pretty good. So look at this, you've got huge cup holders. They can hold a big cup of coffee, which is really handy. And other storage, well, there's some more under here with some USB input there. One there. You've got massive door bins, got room for 2 bottles. There's some extra storage down here as well. And well, the only disappointment is the glove box, which is a little bit small. In terms of the design, it's very sporty, very Alfa. You've got huge dials, you've got this sporty steering wheel. The start button's actually on the steering wheel as well, which is really nice for an SUV, that. And yeah, it's nice. Quality's pretty good. I don't think it's quite as good as in the German SUVs. You know, there's a few cheap feeling bits of plastic, but it's not too bad. And I do like the design. The design's good. I'm not so sure about this wood trim though. It's not that I don't like it, it just doesn't seem to go with the rest of the trim. You're better off having that in the brushed aluminium. That is actually an option. And that brings me on to the equipment levels. So the entry level car, it's all right. You get things like climate control, you get cruise control, you get hill descent control, so all the controls, but you don't seem to have sat nav with it. And the seats are cloth. You don't want that, so you need to step up to the super version, which is about £3,000 more, and then you get stuff like part leather seats. You also get an 8-inch infotainment display with the navigation. So the infotainment system itself, it's fairly easy to use. You navigate through all the menus using this swivel wheel. Maybe the processor isn't quite as fast as on the higher end systems that you get in a German SUV, and I do think the screen's a little bit dark and the graphics a bit low res. But other than that, it's fine. Now, if you click it there, you can see my full in-depth video review of the Alfa infotainment system. This car also has a little digital screen between the dials as well, which can display things like navigation directions. But once again, you know, it's not as glorious as that full widescreen display you can get on an Audi Q5. And speaking of an Audi Q5, let's just jump into the back of this Stelvio because, well, I do think there is enough space back here. Look, decent leg room, decent headroom. It's just not as roomy as the Audi. Also, you can't slide or recline the seats. And the footwells, they are a bit small. They're a bit cramped if you want to stretch out. And you've got this hump in the floor here. And because there's small footwells, when you move into the middle seat, it can feel a little bit uncomfortable if you have to carry 3 in the back at once. Still, you get 3-way folding seats, so look, you can fold down this middle seat there if you want to carry longer items, and 2 rear passengers. You've got a couple of cup holders there. You have 2 USB sockets there, so people in the back can charge their mobile devices. And I like the way the covers for the Isofix child seat anchor points. They flip up, they're not removable, so you're not going to lose them. This isn't the biggest SUV in the back, but it's going to be big enough for most people, and it's the same story with the boot actually. You see, the capacity is below average for this kind of car, but it's still going to be big enough, you know, for a family. Look at that, you've got enough space there. Admittedly, if you need a really big boot, you probably want to look at something like a Jaguar F-Pace, because that's about 20% larger than this, but it's a large enough space. Look at it, it's nice and square. There's no load lip to lift things over, so you can just slide your bags in or out. I like the fact that the load cover is very, very light. It's very simple, and it means that even though there's nowhere really to store it, it doesn't take up too much space in the boot when you need to carry it. You're probably wondering what's under here, so we've got a space saver spare wheel. But this is a bit odd, look. It's not even attached to this, it's just like loose. A bit odd, but the rest of the boot is quite useful. So you've got some storage cubby down here, there's hooks just up here, you've got a 12-volt socket, there's tethering points about the place as well. I also like the fact that you can fold the seats down by these levers in the boot, though you do have to lean in and push the backs down, which is a bit annoying. When you do fold the seats down, you've got this big load area there, and it's a continuous floor. There's no ridge between the main boot area and the seat backs, although there is a slight incline, but it's still quite easy to just slide things right to the front like that. Then they slide back down again. Okay, that's the walk around bit dealt with. Now it's time to hit the road to see what this car is like to drive. The Stelvio is a little bit of a mixed bag when you're driving in town. So the steering is not too heavy, the automatic gearbox, it's nice and smooth, yet it responds quickly when you put your foot down to nip through a gap in traffic. Then there's the fact that you sit quite high up, so you get a good view over other cars. The problem is you get a bit of a big blind spot from here, and the view out the back window is tiny, it's not very good at all. Then there's the suspension, which is a little bit on the firm side for an SUV. So it's constantly fidgeting around, this car is, when you're driving slowly, and when you hit a pothole or a big bump you do get quite a jolt. It's not helped by the fact that this car is riding on 19-inch alloy wheels, so you might want smaller wheels if you're going to be driving this car in town a lot, such as on the school run. As you speed up, the suspension does settle down, but it's never as comfortable, this car, as something like a Mercedes GLC, and it's not as quiet as one either. You do get a little bit of wind whistle from around the big wing mirror and a bit more tyre noise as well. You can get the Stelvio with 3 petrol engines, 2 2-litre turbos, or a bonkers 2.9-litre V6 with over 500 horsepower. There's also 2 2.2-litre diesels. This is one of the diesels, and it's the higher powered 210 horsepower version, and it's very punchy. It's a quick engine. Then when you put your foot down, it does make more noise than the 2-litre diesel you can get in an Audi Q5. In terms of economy, well, Alfa says 58 miles per gallon is possible. So far, this Stelvio seemed a little bit so-so to drive, but there is one area where it just excels over every other SUV pretty much that I've driven, and that's in the way it handles. So it's actually genuinely good fun to drive this thing when you get it onto a twisty road. The steering, for instance, is just so sharp. You turn the wheel a bit and it's just darting into a corner. You've also got loads of grip as well. You know, you feel like you're in a sports car, only one that's just raised up more off the ground. I actually think this thing handles better than a Jaguar F-Pace, and it's maybe even better than a Porsche Macan as well. What Alfa's done is really impressive with this thing. In fact, if you're the kind of person who's always avoided an SUV because you think they're just going to be too boring to drive, you should check this car out. Now then, it's time for the carwow 5 annoying things about this car. The automatic high beam assist doesn't always dip the headlamps when you approach a car from the rear, so you sometimes dazzle them in the rear view mirror. The zoom function on the sat-nav map doesn't actually let you zoom out all that far. That's as far as it'll go. Instead, you have to go into Browse Map to zoom out, and it's all a bit of a faff. And then there's the reversing camera. So, the screen for it is only that big, and it's quite low definition. Why? Because the doors don't extend down over the sills, it means that when you get out, you actually rub the back of your trousers on them, and if the sills are dirty, your trousers are going to be too. There is an annoying gap in the sun visor, which means sometimes you can get blinded. These solid metal paddle shifters may be absolutely glorious, but they do get in the way of the control stalks, and it makes it a bit fiddly to use the intermittent wipe. Sounds a bit rude, doesn't it? Intermittent wipe. Thankfully, this car has plenty of cool features, which helps make up for all this. Here's 5. The Stelvio's clever electrically controlled braking system means that from 80 miles an hour it can stop 5 metres sooner than if it had a normal braking system. The car's bonnet, the rear wings, bits of the engine and the suspension are made out of aluminium. The prop shaft, which is the thing that sends the power from the engine to the rear wheels, is made from carbon fibre, and all this helps keep the weight down and is why the Stelvio is the lightest SUV in its class. In fact, it's a whole person lighter than its nearest rival. Also, the weight distribution is a perfect 50-50 front and rear, and all this added together helps boost the handling. The Stelvio's clever 4-wheel drive system means that actually when you're driving, for most of the time, it just sends power to the rear wheels, so it has a sports car-like feel, but when the rears start to slip, it can divert 50% of the power to the front. All Stelvios get auto emergency braking with pedestrian protection. It also scored the highest for adult occupant protection in the Euro NCAP crash tests. On most cars, when you turn the steering wheels, the wheels not only rotate, they also angle slightly. And that's exaggerating it a little bit. But on the Stelvio, it doesn't do that at all because of its clever front suspension. They remain completely flat, so you always have the maximum tyre contact patch with the road for optimum grip. Now, if you click on the pop-out banner up there or on the link below the video, you can compare offers on the new Alfa Romeo Stelvio. So then, what's my verdict on this car? Should you avoid it? Should you... It always beeps like that when you lock it. Should you consider it? Should you shortlist it? Or should you just go right ahead and buy it? Well, I reckon you should consider the Alfa Stelvio. It is brilliant fun to drive. It just doesn't quite do the SUV basics such as comfort, luxury and space quite as well as some rivals. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and click on our logo to subscribe to our channel. Also, click on the windows or on the links below the video for more content on this car. Now, did you spot the Easter egg in this video? It was the Stelvio Pass on Google Maps in the glove box.